Hi, this is Dave Bundy. I'm editor of the Lincoln Journal-Star, and we are visiting today with Breland Ridenour, who is a Republican candidate for governor. We're joined by Pat Sangimino. Pat, you want to introduce yourself quickly?
Hi, Breland. Nice to meet you. I am Pat Sangimino. I am the nighttime news editor here at the Journal-Star. Been here for 4 years, been on the editorial board for 2 years now.
Wonderful. Thank you.
All right. Well, Breland, thank you for spending 30 minutes with us in your car today. The first question we've got is sort of an introductory one for all of our readers, a chance for you to talk about yourself. So, looking around at the political climate, it doesn't look super fun to run for office or be in office these days. So, number one, why do you want to be the governor of Nebraska? And then what experiences and attributes do you have that qualify you for the job?
Sure. Dave, I completely agree. It is not a fun climate to be in. Even in the campaign process, there's a lot of strong difference of opinions. There's a lot going on in our world today, in our country, even our state. It's an unprecedented time, that's for sure. But I'm not here for a fun time. What I'm here to do is I see we need leadership in the state. We need bold leadership. We need people willing to make tough decisions. We need we need a leader who can relate to the people, and we need a leader who is willing to work with those people and prioritize their needs and put those needs above that individual's self. And that's one reason I'm running is because I come from the middle class. I'm not a super wealthy. I'm not this multi-million-dollar individual. I'm blessed and I've worked hard, but I come from middle class. I come from where most Nebraskans, I believe, are coming from. So their priorities are my priorities because I feel the same thing affects my family. And so those are one of the many reasons why I'm running, because we need somebody who can relate to the people. We need somebody who can formulate ideas, formulate a full perspective, what I call 360-degree perspective, solutions, understand the core reasons for the problem, find a solution that fixes it, and provide solutions that are going to be sustainable, not something just to check the box off, right? To say, oh, well, we accomplished this, but yet Nebraskan taxpayers are left hand holding the bag, and we're left with potentially more problems than what we had originally. I've seen that from government far too often. And so we need somebody who's not going to be swayed by personal agendas or money or anything like that. And that's why I'm running, because I fulfill all of those requirements, because that's what I want to see out of a governor of my state. And what qualifies me is, first off, I touched a little bit on that already, that because one, I come from a middle class. Two, what qualifies me is that I've spent many, many years personally investing in developing my own leadership ability, training, leadership. And leadership is not the same as managerial, right? I am an IT manager. I do manage the technical infrastructure for a company here in Omaha, but a leader is different than a manager. A manager is somebody that does budgets. A manager is somebody that manages schedules, the projects, things of that nature. But a leader is somebody who has to know how to communicate ideas, convince people why it's important to work with them on these ideas, to understand how the humans work, because politics is all about people, all about people. I don't care if you have the greatest ideas. I don't care if you have the greatest morals, whatever it is. If you can't communicate and you cannot connect with people, especially those who have a difference of opinion, you're going to get nowhere, absolutely nowhere. And so I've developed many, many skills over my life, over my professional background that allows me to be able to do that, to be able to lead this state to greater heights that I honestly don't believe we have seen yet. But more importantly, a leader that's going to prioritize what Nebraskans need most today.
All right. Second question for you. Governor Ricketts, the legislature, they've each proposed measures related to land use, education, public health that are kind of in conflict with sort of the basic Nebraska view of local control. How do you view local control? How should the state be interacting with community government entities?
Well, I believe that the more local control we can have, the better. I'm a proponent for letting the people decide what's best for their areas. Now, it's important to remember that Nebraska is a very diverse state, from the rural to the metro, to the east, even to the west side. A lot of difference of opinions, a lot of different priorities on these sides. So it just goes to show why local control is more important. So the more we can keep down closer towards the people, the better off we're going to be. Is there a particular example in regards to that? I feel like it's kind of a pretty large question, but I want to make sure I'm answering your question properly.
Well, one of the examples is, say, Senator Clements has a bill that I believe Governor Ricketts supports to remove to take away local control from the Lincoln-Lancaster County Health Department and put the state in charge of all of that. Now, it's sort of an anomaly. We care about this here in Lincoln, and there are people on both sides, obviously, but it's an instance where there's a choice between local control. They could extend that same local control to all health districts, or they could take away local control from the one that has it. The decision seems to be to take away local health control. How would you view that?
Yeah, well, we got to make sure we have appropriate local control. We need to make sure we have the people, the Nebraskans have the ability to interface and actually be invested in that control. And I know they're trying to do this, the same thing within Omaha. They're trying to take away, I believe, the control of Dr. Hughes to a certain extent and move it to a different entity. I think what's important to also understand right now is that people are very, very frustrated after the whole COVID event, after the pandemic and what they've experienced. A lot of this is coming, I think, stemming from that. But more importantly, people need to decide what's best for themselves. I don't always think taking control and moving to the state is ever usually a good opportunity, because I always want to look at it and say, well, maybe that looks good for now. Maybe we have a great governor. That's awesome. Some people are saying we need to abolish the state board and move the state board of education, and move that onto the governor and legislature. The thing is, that may be great when you have a good governor and good legislature, but what when you don't? What do you have people that disagree? We want to keep that control down to the people to decide for themselves. So especially if it means that the people get to vote on it, the people can easily interface with that government entity, I absolutely support that. Yes.
Okay, thanks. All right, got a next question for you. Obviously, the legislature, Governor Ricketts has spent a lot of time on the corrections crisis. What are your priorities? What would your plans be to address overcrowding, justice reform, issues like that?
Yeah, great. I like this question. Well, first off, I've always advertised a 360-degree perspective. And I mentioned that a little bit earlier. And what that really means is you understand the problem from all angles, understand the real core issues of what we're seeing here. Why are we overcrowded? Is it simply, well, we just have too many criminals, right? And no space for them. Well, that may be an issue today, but how did we get here? Those are the questions that we need to be asking, looking into. And here's some of the solutions that I would like to offer. Is we do need justice reform. We do need better training to get nonviolent criminals, especially, out of the prison system. Get them on a foundation where we give them the tools to succeed and not end up back in prison. We know this happens. Statistically proven that many criminals end up back into the system, and it's because we're not really addressing the problem at the core. And I know a number of people who have been through this system, who are out now, who are struggling to be productive members of our community, who are nonviolent individuals. And so I've seen this from firsthand, to talk to them and say, well, what do you need? Well, a lot of them, you spend 5 years in prison, you're way behind the curve now, way behind the curve. And we need to make sure we work and identify those individuals, and we can, to make sure they get the proper training and education to get them out and opportunities to get them out of prison. That's one of the issues why we're seeing a lot of overcrowding. Does that mean we don't need to build a new prison? I'm not saying that we don't, but what I am saying, though, is that just building a new prison isn't going to fix the true problem. Eventually, that new prison is going to get overcrowded, and they're going to dump more money to build a new prison, and that one's going to get overcrowded because we're not addressing the problem at the root cause. All right. As well as justice reformation. What are we really doing? If somebody has a little bit of marijuana on them, why are we sticking these people away into prison for a long time? Right? We need to make sure, and that's just one particular instance. but we need to make sure that the punishment actually fits the crime. We also need to take into consideration, we need people in our workforce, right? We have a workforce shortage right now. We always have low unemployment in Nebraska. And if we want to grow, we need people to work. There's a lot of good people in prison that would be good employees, good workers, and we need to capitalize on that. Not all of them. There are some of them that need to remain in prison. But I want to make sure that those who are the violent ones, those who are doing the most heinous acts, those are staying in prison when they need to be. But the ones that we have a lot of people that get caught up in the wrong place, the wrong time, make stupid decisions, right? Especially when they're young. We need to start looking at this a little bit more from a case-to-case perspective and try to get those people out, encourage them. And statistics are showing that we have a lot of good positive effect and results from this kind of mentality.
All right, thank you. So, Breland, next question is, but if you got the answer to this one, the legislature would love you forever. What's the solution to tax reform? And if it includes tax cuts, where does the money come from?
Yeah. Okay. So first off, we always got to cut spending. Look, there's always wasteful spending, especially in government. Any business, you always have wasteful spending. So we have to identify that and we need to cut that. First thing we need to do is get a good reporting system in place. We can leverage technology to do that. But I want to know from all of our states, from all of our counties, from all of our schools, how much money, what are you spending your money on? How much money do you really need? Okay. This isn't a matter of cutting costs and say, we're not going to give you money. We're going to make you do it with less. But this whole, for example, the end of the year, use it or lose it mentality. It's a bad business policy. It's a bad government policy. That is terrible and results in millions and millions and millions of dollars that are in wasteful spending. We need to have incentives. We need to have a plan that says, give that money back to us. But there's reasons why they don't want to do that. There's a reason why they waste the money, and that I understand. Again, 360-degree perspective, right? We need to identify a solution to get that money back and say, but we're going to make sure that you get the money that you need when you need it. A lot of that comes from accountability. It comes from proper oversight, and it comes from somebody who actually cares to cut spending. But we can't stop there. Property taxes especially are crippling our state, completely crippling our growth, population retainment. It's not working, and it hasn't worked for many years. Now, personally, I'm a proponent for a consumption tax, particularly the EPIC plan. And here's why. One, consumption tax allows, and this is a sole, by the way, sole consumption tax gets rid of inheritance, property, real estate, and personal property tax, gets rid of corporate tax, and income tax. So we're looking at single consumption. Consumption tax provides the taxpayer to decide when and how much they pay those taxes. No more taking out of your paycheck. No more sending you a bill biannually. What you get to plan on. If you know you're going to spend X amount of dollars in taxes on a new car, you can plan for this, or you can choose to buy an old car and not pay any taxes, right? It goes back to power, and it's not about local control. It goes power back to the people. But we show statistically with this consumption tax, we'll actually increase revenue, decrease the tax burden on Nebraskans. The EPIC tax plan provides for the lower income families to ensure that they get assistance, that they're not being overly burdened, which is what one of the issues that we often see with consumption tax is that that takes that into consideration. And also there's no business to business taxes. Business expenses are not taxed with the EPIC plan. So this is great for our entrepreneurs, especially small businesses. And so I believe the consumption-based tax would be the best. Now, briefly, if you couple that now with other ideas, let's say as repealing the helmet law, we have thousands of bikers, motorcyclists that go around Nebraska when going to Sturgis. They go around Nebraska because they're the only state in their path that requires a helmet. And so they go through Iowa and South Dakota. They skirt our entire state. We repeal that helmet law. They're going to come into our state, and now we're collecting tax money and revenue from outside sources, not Nebraska. This will work with Ogallala. And if we do end up building that new lake between Lincoln and Ashland area, between Lincoln and Omaha, if we do that, that's also going to bring in more consumption tax. And guess what? Nebraskans aren't paying it. It's a win-win situation in my scenario, in my opinion. And the EPIC tax plan I would consider as an 80-20 solution. There's a few things that need to be changed, little tweaks and little additions that need to be added, but it's a solid platform and it would be a lot better than what we have today.
All right. This next question relates to elections and election policy. Do you believe that efforts to investigate the 2020 election in Nebraska are warranted? And then do you support efforts to change the state's election law and procedures? And if so, how can those be made without suppressing or disenfranchising voters?
Yeah. First off, people want to talk about investigation and say that's bad. Now, investigation in our election system, which is really the main and only way that Americans and Nebraskans can affect change in their government. It's important. This isn't a Republican thing. This isn't a Democrat thing. It's a Libertarian thing. This is for all Nebraskans. An investigation doesn't mean it's bad. Investigation means that we look and we make sure it's efficient, and we make sure it's secure. And that I do support. In fact, we should have investigations quite frequently to make sure everything's on the up and up and that we're not missing any issues, right? That's just good oversight and accountability, especially for something so critical as our elections. And what I do support in changing is I support that we, my background's in technology, all things technology, okay? And one thing I can tell you, while technology could be used to benefit many areas of our state, the problem is that technology has vulnerabilities, okay? There are, technology can be used against us. And so I do support going back to paper ballots. I do support having counterfeit countermeasures on our ballots, right? The $20 bill today, I mean, on a $20 bill has 14 different counterfeit countermeasures, right? Our ballots don't have any. Our government's more concerned about protecting the money than they are the ballots, and that's fine. And money, in fact, for that matter, but the ballots need to be protected as well. We need to make it a lot harder for people to fake these ballots. We also need to have accountability of who's getting ballots. Too many these mail-in ballots are going out, and they're going out multiple ballots for the same person. And this is just one of the few issues we've seen. We do need to investigate. We need to see what's going on here and make sure we fix those problems to make sure our elections are secure for everybody. Now, actually, for voter suppression, I don't see it, right? The voter ID, I do support voter ID. Voter ID, though, is free. It's not going to cost anybody anything, because I get that, and it needs to remain free. I wouldn't support ever putting a price tag on that, because $25, even if it's for one ID, $25 is a lot of money for a lot of people out there. And I know that because I've been in those shoes before. I want to have voter ID to make sure that people are that should be voting are able to vote, and those who shouldn't be voting are not even there to vote. Perhaps maybe they're deceased, for example. So we're not going to have any problems. This is, again, secures our election. It's not a Republican thing. It's a Nebraskan thing. It's an American thing, and it needs to be secure for all parties involved.
All right. Second to last question for you. Should the legislature scrap nonpartisanship? And if not, how would you work to restore nonpartisanship to our sort of partisan, nonpartisan legislature?
Yeah. Personally, I believe we should have a partisan legislature. I really do. And even a step further than that, I think we actually need to have a bicameral. I think that would be in our best interest. There's a reason 49 other states don't have a unicameral. Why we're the only ones? And it's not because it works great, it's because it doesn't work very well. And that needs to change. I don't have a problem with partisanship. The thing is, we have more groups now that are much more active. We have more political groups that are registered, that are growing, and there's no reason why we're not dealing with just Republican, Democrat, two-party anymore. There's a lot of different parties out there that people can relate to that have different foundational values, and I think it's important that voters know who somebody's aligning themselves with, or simply aligning themselves as an independent. That's none of them. That's not a problem. I think, and talking to voters, Nebraskans want a partisan. Whether it be unicameral or bicameral, they want a partisanship there because they want to have a good base knowledge of where these candidates are sitting.
Just a follow-up question to that. I would have characterized you as a limited government person, but a bicameral legislature would, be a bigger government. Is there any conflict there? I'm assuming we've got senators now. What we'd be setting up in a bicameral legislature would be more of a House type representation that would involve more than 49 legislators. So
yeah.
That seems like an expansion of government to me, but.
Yeah, no, I respect that question. And I'm glad you asked, Dave, because here's the thing. While I am for limited government and I want to cut our expenses as much as possible, the reason why I want a bicameral is because the unicameral just isn't working. So it's like, well, do we keep limit a smaller government and have a system that's not working very well, or do we have a system that would be better? And here's one of the biggest reasons why is talking to state senators. Right? I had this conversation with Speaker Hilgers as well, is that there's not enough time to debate these issues. But when an issue gets introduced, and when they start talking, and when it gets pulled out of committee, they start talking about this. A lot of legislatures, by the time they even figure out what's going on and what this bill is about, and time to ask questions, it's already time to vote. Say, hey, we're going to do this or we're not going to do this. We need to have more debate. We need to slow government down a little bit, and that's what would happen having a bicameral. So I appreciate your question, and I absolutely don't want to expand government any larger than it needs to. But that's where it comes down to: if we're going to have a solution, let's make sure we have a solution that works. And if that means we have to expand it a little bit in that regard, it's what's going to be best, so that we can get more debate on the bills that matter to Nebraskans, and have a little extra check and balance there. And I believe that's how our federal government's is working. That's how I believe the founding fathers had identified the government of the states to work. And we are seeing in many other states that works really, really well.
If the legislature were organized around parties, I mean, I could see it going the other way too, where more party business is transacted not on the floor of the legislature. How do you see the party organization benefiting public debate?
Yeah, well, it's kind of like you said already before in the last question. It's already like a partisan, nonpartisan legislature anyway. The thing is that that's what they're already doing. They're already getting it. Everybody knows who's a Democrat and who's a Republican, or who's a Libertarian, who whatever party they connect with and support. Everybody in the legislature already knows that. We are, and the people already know that too. So we're not fooling anybody really. And so that's already happening. The people that are going to be in that little group, if they want to stay in their little echo chambers, they're going to do that regardless. Now, I don't support that. And as governor, I'm going to say, look, we're going to consider everybody's opinion here. We're going to find a solution, get that 360-degree perspective, and we're going to have to work across the aisles, right? And that takes a lot of effort to be able to do that. And so I don't support staying within your echo chamber and only working within the parties. And I think that's where it comes down. This is a big deal. There's a lot more going on than just having a party, partisan or nonpartisan. Well, we got to look at our leadership and say, do we have a leader? And that's where the governor, his biggest role, in my opinion, as the state governor, is the leader, is to walk in there and be that role model and say, we're going to work together, all parties involved. We have a lot of libertarians in Nebraska, right? They have a big presence. We also need to include them. We need to look at all these parties, all these people, and start coming together for what's best for Nebraska, not best for a single party.
All right. Pat, did you have a question before I do the last question?
I do have a question, and it's a little deeper dive into the first question we asked. Is being the governor a lifetime dream, or and if not, what was the catalyst to you making this decision to run?
Sure, great question, Pat. No, it wasn't a lifelong dream. In fact, being in politics wasn't necessarily a lifelong dream. I've always enjoyed it. I've tried to be very informed and have a good education, understanding how our government works, the importance of it, our constitutional rights, and all of this. But I decided to run in December of 2020 because our country is in a lot of turmoil right now. We need strong leadership. We need people who have, like I mentioned earlier, politics is all about people. We need people, a leader especially, which as a leader, you're a role model. Okay, you're an example for not only government officials, but also the people, say we're going to find a way to work together, because we can. There is common ground here that we can find, and it takes a really strong leader to be able to step up to the plate to be able to do that. That takes a leader who is founded on principle, who won't sway from what is right, and will stay away from what is wrong. But outside of that, I say, hey, you know what? Let's come to the table. Let's compromise, because I respect you as an individual, even though your opinions may be far different than mine. We're elected individuals. We're here to do what's best for Nebraska. If you don't want to be a part of that, you don't need to be here. The fact is I'm not looking to be governor of the state. I mean, I am. That's what I'm running for. But I'm looking to be the leader of Nebraska, right? And this isn't just politics. This is personal. This is because I want Nebraska to be a better state when I get done serving as governor, not only for you and other Nebraskans, but also for me and my family, because my family lives here. My children live here, And when I'm done serving as governor, I'm going to be right here in Nebraska, continuing to work, continuing to raise my family, eventually my grandchildren, right? I want a better place for me to live. And so that's why I stepped up, because I have not seen candidates who are truly bringing in some common sense, who are honest and have integrity, because they say one thing and then they do something else. Then they say, well, I'm going to do this, or I stand for that, and then they do something else. I'm sick and tired of that. I want somebody, I bring integrity, I bring honesty in here. And even if people don't agree with everything I say, and I'm going to say this too, in my campaign travels, there are a number of Democrats that say, if I'm on that general ticket in November, they're going to vote for me. And the reason why they're going to vote for me is because they know they can trust me. They know I'm honest. And I've been consistent the last 14 months of campaigning. I've been consistent in my message every single day. Nebraskans know that. They see that we need somebody who's going to represent and lead this state that is truly out for the best interest of the people and will not toe a party line, right? But will be somebody that we can trust, who is honest, who is transparent, and who is truly going to be working and cares about the people.
You mentioned December 2020. What was the catalyst? I want to dive a little deeper into that.
Well, it was just at that time, I suppose. I've always tried to be an informed voter, and I've seen what's been the turmoil and the separation going on, diversion in our country and our state, right? It got to that point. Part of it was also because I'm successful enough in my career. My children are no longer little babies, right? My family supports me. It also was part of timing my own life that I could finally step up to a role like this, to be able to campaign for a year and a half almost, and step into the role of governor, right? A part of that was just the fact that I matured enough and had enough experience and attributes and character that I could fulfill this role and not only do it, but do it really well in my own opinion.
Thank you.
Got to hit you with the last question, and then we need to wrap up. But the
I was
last
just getting warmed up, Dave.
I can tell. What have we not asked you that you wish we would have asked you?
I think top priority for me, right? Number one priority are the rights and liberties of the people. I am a constitutional rights apply to everyone. Again, this is not a Republican issue. It's not a Democrat issue. The rights of the people need to be protected. Governments, I believe the government's first priority is to protect those rights and liberties of the people. Allow them to choose what is best for their own life. That's what I prioritize, right? And I don't believe we look at a problem. No solution is ever the right solution if it infringes on the rights of the people. We've got to protect those rights. That's what I'm going to do, and that's what I'm going to prioritize.
All right. Well, Breland, thank you very much for spending this time with us. We will conclude this meeting. You can start driving again and do some more campaigning, and we will save this video recording, share it with our editorial board, and share it with our readers when we're ready to announce our endorsement.
Well, thank you for your time, gentlemen. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right. Thank you. See you later.
Take care now.
Bye.